Hello, welcome to the interview here on France 24. Well, the building you see right now on your screen on the outskirts of Shanghai may not look like anything out of the ordinary, but an American computer security firm says that that 12-story White Tower is actually the epicenter of a series of sustained hack attacks against U.S. corporations, dating all the way back to 2006. And now here's where it gets very interesting. That building also happens to be the headquarters of a secretive Chinese army unit. Now, my guest today is joining me from Washington, D.C., Grady Summers. You are vice president of Mandiant, and yours is the company that spent 6 years tracing hundreds of hack attacks to that tower our viewers just saw on the screen. And your company's just released a 60-page report detailing what you found. Thanks for being here. I want to cut right to the chase. The crux of your report, you says most of the hackers targeted victims in the United States industry. Smaller number were in Canada and Britain. I want you to tell me, who exactly are these hackers? Who are these people? What did they steal?
Well, our 6 years of research shows that these hackers are a group that we call APT-1, or Advanced Persistent Threat 1, are in fact members of the People's Liberation Army Unit 61398, that building that you were showing on the screen earlier. We have 6 years of research and over 141 victims, all of which point back to that same location. So basically, you are able to sit there today and tell me with almost absolute certainty that there is a direct link between the location of those hacks and the fact that that's a Chinese army unit. That's right. It's not an accusation that we make lightly. We're certain of it based on the evidence that we've put together. The good thing, though, is that we've been very open with this evidence. We've released over 3,000 indicators, a 60-page report, a lot of details that other researchers can review and draw their own conclusions as well. Now, the Chinese government has dismissed your findings out of hand. A spokesman called them earlier today, quote, baseless allegations. What is the most damning evidence, if you had to respond to the Chinese denial that you have, saying, well, look at this? Sure. It's no surprise that they would voice that opinion. Our most damning evidence is the fact that when we monitored the attackers' infrastructure, that is the infrastructure from which they launched attacks into the U.S. and other countries, 98% of the time they were logging in from that one block in Shanghai, and 97% of the time they did so using a Chinese character set on their PCs. That's not just a coincidence. So, and that is a pretty firm link. The Chinese also are saying, they're saying, look, we've been victims of these types of attacks. We're not just, you know, we have also suffered. And it says the U.S. has its own secret legions of cyber warriors. You could argue that they have a point, the Chinese. Sure. Well, I'm not here as an apologist for U.S. cyber policy, but one thing I will say that's very different is that what we see here is Chinese state-sponsored attack groups going after a private industry. These are private corporations that aren't prepared to defend against the entire might of a country's cyber resources directed at them. So it's a bit of an apples and oranges comparison. This isn't government versus government. It's government versus private industry. Now, you work for both companies, I assume, and for governments. And how does it work usually? A government suspects that it's been targeted or it's been having problems with hackers, and they come to you. And what's the first thing you usually do? That's right. Well, we always seek to discover the full scope of compromise. We want to understand everywhere in a victim infrastructure that an attacker might reside. Government is usually pretty well prepared to deal with this. It's the private industry that really suffers, and we're hoping by releasing 3,000 indicators today, industry can use that to detect these attackers and kick them out of their networks. What about the U.S. government itself? I mean, you've released your report, as you said, to bring greater visibility to this issue. The Obama administration, though, was on top of this long ago. Do you feel the U.S. government has protected its own grids, its own networks well enough? You know, it's hard to say. I know we've been making a lot of strides in that area. It's our hope by releasing a report, though, that highlights China's activities against Western organizations, that we can hopefully add to that national dialogue that President Obama and members of his staff have on this issue when they talk to China. But has Mandiant been working closely, consulting with the U.S. intelligence agencies on this? Yeah, I can't speak to exactly who we consult with. All of our client names are anonymous. I can say that the New York Times reported this morning that members of the intelligence community did confirm the details of our report, though, and we think that's important. So basically, you are working, though, is it safe to assume you are working with a number of governments on either a formal or an informal basis, trying to trace these hackers? Obviously, I would just say that we share any of these results with the U.S. government. We're happy to share our indicators, and obviously they're usually the first to know when there's something like this that's breaking.
Now, China, obviously, today is right now in the bullseye in this report, but we've had reports in the past of a lot of this stuff originating from Iran. What could you tell us about the level of cyber hack attacks coming from that country?
It's a great question. I can say we track about 75 different groups, all of which have different national origins. The preponderance of those are in China. They tend to make up the bulk of the attackers. What makes them different, though, are that when we see other countries attack, they usually try to be much more subtle. China appears to be somewhat more brazen, and that they're maybe not as concerned if they get caught, which probably contributes to why we see so much evidence linking China back to attacks of these types.
So I could assume your guess would be that after this report came out, well, your report followed by the New York Times report on your report, that the people inside that Shanghai tower are not too nervous today. They're not really making much of it.
Yeah, I think this kind of thing will continue. I don't anticipate that our report's going to bring a halt to these kinds of activities. This is the new normal. This is how espionage is waged in this century, and we should come to expect more of it.
What can a company concretely do, or a government for that matter, do to protect themselves? I mean, because it would seem that there is no foolproof safeguard against these types of hacks.
You're exactly right. There's no foolproof way to stop these types of attacks. We always recommend that companies focus on detecting these attacks quickly. They're inevitable. They will happen. But if you can detect them quickly, you can usually eject an attacker before they can do much damage or steal many documents from your network. So quick detection is a key.
In this case, with the secretive Chinese army unit, they were, I guess, presumably what, after secret company information, emails of high-level employees. What is the most precious piece of information that they're typically after?
That's correct. The most precious thing are usually blueprints or plans or diagrams or chemical formulas that relate to a particular piece of technology. We do often see them go after executive emails. They tend to be going after those at companies that are engaged in some sort of negotiation with China on pricing or some sort of merger and acquisition topic. But generally, it's those blueprints. It's that sensitive intellectual property spanning 20 different industries that makes the biggest impact on the U.S. economy and the economy of other countries that have been hit as well.
Now, I guess one of the biggest fears, Grady, circulating when we think of hack attacks is the possibility, eventuality, that if they get bad enough, the hackers could shut down entire grids, urban electricity grids, pipelines, gas, oil. Do you see that in the near future?
That's true. It is a concern of ours. We don't think that's the motive of the Chinese. In fact, China is the United States' biggest foreign investor, so it wouldn't be to their advantage to cripple our infrastructure. The scary thing is, though, the same type of access that an attacker needs to steal documents off of a corporate network is the exact same kind of access that could be used to shut that network down. So while we don't think it's the intent of the Chinese by any means, it's certainly a concern. They've got that access if they ever wanted to do it.
I'm obviously talking here from here in Europe, in France, and I'm just wondering, how would you assess right now the level of here in Europe, the preparedness of most companies and most governments? Has it been an issue? Have you worked with European companies on this?
We have. We've worked with a number of European companies, and I would say it's similar to the rest of the world. The unfortunate fact is that corporate America is lagging behind where we need to be in cybersecurity. Not enough attention has gone into improving our defenses and our detection mechanism over the years. It worries me. I've spent my career helping companies improve their cybersecurity, and I have to say we've got a long way to go.
Well, I mean, and I guess cyber espionage, if you want to call it that, a lot of specialists are calling it sort of the new crime-fighting frontier 5–10 years down the road.
That's right. It's common sense, right? The battlefield, as with everything else in our world, is shifting toward a cyber landscape. That's why you have companies like Mandiant that are trying to stand in the gap there and do what we can to help protect our clients, providing the 3,000 indicators we provide today, providing the technology and the services that we provide to our clients on a daily basis, because it's a growing gap, and somebody's got to fill that gap.
Now, your company, when you work with other companies trying to trace their hacks, they give you total access to their internal computer systems?
Generally, whatever access is needed to find the intruders and to kick them out. Usually when we engage with a client, we'll determine the scope of compromise, we'll understand everywhere in their environment that's compromised, and then we work with them to remediate or to kick the attackers out and close the holes so they can't get back in.
Finally, I have to ask you, Grady, has Mandiant itself been hacked? Are you scared of being hacked?
No. Well, yeah, certainly we're aware of it. We're vigilant. Like every company today that's got sensitive information, we're a target. And that's probably one thing that viewers should take away from this. If you work for an organization that's got sensitive information or information that would be useful to a growing economy, you could be a target.
And finally, the Obama administration, obviously, I imagine they all woke up this morning, they read the report in the Times, they were already aware of what's going on. Are you expecting any sort of immediate type of response or hoping for something? Because you guys are, in a sense, are whistleblowers on this.
I don't have any insight into that. I would just say that Mandiant stands by to help the government provide any information we can as they work to diplomatically address these issues. It's a growing issue, and it's going to have to be addressed head on.
Grady Summers, thank you very much for joining us from Washington, Vice President of the American computer security firm that has traced over 140 attacks to a 12-story office tower or building in Shanghai that happens to be also the headquarters of a secret Chinese army unit. Thanks again for being with us today, and thanks to all of you for watching the interview here on France 24.